Well, we made it. 99 episodes across 6 years. And God knows how many VHS tapes and DVDs covered. Some were great, some not so much. Some were full of nostalgic joy, and some were nothing short of tedious garbage. So before we turn out the lights, let's do one more. Back in 2017, I reviewed a series of movies I proudly declared my favourite movies of all time. It's been over 20 years and I love Back to the Future, the classic trilogy of movies starring Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly and Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown. I own so many copies of them, they require their own section. VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and if we count Prime Video, that's 7 versions of these movies. Pinocchio ain't got shit on this. And believe me, if I could have them on Betamax, Laserdisc, CED, and VCD, I would. If that's not movie love, I don't know what is. What is harder to love are those old reviews. They were poorly written, rushed, and I used crappy VHS footage. I can't close out video memories without remedying this. So for one last time, let's talk about some movies loved all over the world. To briefly cover my feelings towards the movies, Part 1 and 3 are tied for my favourite, and Part 2 trails just below it. The way I see it, if Parts 1 and 3 are 10s, Part 2 is a 9. It's still an excellent movie, but it doesn't quite make it. Part 3 has a great time period in the Old West. It has some excellent music cues, and of course it has one of the greatest climaxes in movie history. And if you love seeing Doc Brown get a happy ending, this is the one for you. That being said, the original film is just so iconic, from the original story to some great action sequences. Without this, the sequels would not exist. If you only have time for one film, watch this one. My earliest memory of Back to the Future dates back to 1997.
Time-travelling movie adventure for all the family. First on BBC One, Michael J. Fox is the generation-jumping Marty McFly in Back to the Future, Part 3.
I didn't see much, I was only 3 years old, I barely knew what I was watching. All I saw was a man in a cowboy hat sitting in a car on a railway track with a train speeding towards him. The next thing I remember is the opening scene of Back to the Future 2, quite possibly from a TV airing in 1999.
Marty! You've got to come back with me! Where? Back to the future!
And then finally, the trilogy is released on VHS in 2002, and this was my first proper exposure to the series. Evidently I enjoyed it because this would only be the beginning of my history with Back to the Future. In the original reviews, I covered the VHS versions. Time to talk about the rest of them. We're going to start with a brief look at the recordable shelf. On VHS tape number 10, we have Car Crash, The DeLorean Story. Released and taped in 2004, this documentary looks at the controversial rise and fall of the DeLorean DMC-12 and its creator, John DeLorean. Now, I'm not one for automotive-related documentaries. The only reason 11-year-old me taped this from TV was the expectation of it being Back to the Future related. In reality, you get just a few clips from the first movie, a very brief interview with Christopher Lloyd, and a snippet of Back to the Future The Ride.
I'm gonna take a little joyride.
With extraordinary vision, DeLorean saw riot-strewn West Belfast not as a hindrance, but as a glorious opportunity. He was going to build a car in a state-of-the-art factory, make a lot of money, and have his name mentioned in the same breath as Enzo Ferrari and Ferdinand Porsche. He almost succeeded.
I'm sure it's not a bad documentary. If you're interested in the history of the famous car itself, this might work for you. But if you're interested in something Back to the Future related, you best keep looking. The documentary is an hour long, and the franchise takes up barely 30 seconds near the beginning. Moving more in the right direction, but still building up, we have the Back to the Future trilogy novelizations, each one's release coinciding with their respective films. I rediscovered these recently, and yeah, they're in bad shape. I read these a lot in high school, and they are great. They're more or less straight adaptations of the movies, although they do deviate in places and actually include elements that will be addressed in later features, such as George's mother being named Sylvia and Doc Brown's dog in 1955 being named Copernicus, which would later become canon in Back to the Future 3.
Oh, it's all right, Copernicus. Everything's gonna be fine.
So yeah, these books are pretty rare, but if you love the movies, I highly recommend them. Now, back to the main feature. The VHS tapes are more or less all the same. They each have one of the movies, a promo for E.T.
The pirates are out to get you. Don't let them brand you with their mark.
And some horrifying bits about video piracy. It may be a serious subject, but these ads were fucking overkill. The VHS tapes were bought on eBay for the original reviews, but next we have the 2002 trilogy box set on DVD, and this is my original copy from '02. I'm missing the disc for part 1, and parts 2 and 3 are scratched to death. Hardly a surprise. As a kid, I never took care of my DVDs. Outside of the movies, each disc is packing excellent bonus features, ranging from behind-the-scenes documentaries, both old and new,
Action. Marker.
This film was about time.
deleted scenes, outtakes,
It's just me.
storyboards, and trailers.
From out of the west, in a cloud of dust, a thunder of hooves, and a mighty...
Great Scott. I know, this is heavy.
These DVDs absolutely do not disappoint. Even checking them out for this video for the first time in many years was a jolt of nostalgia.
Marty, you gotta come back with me. Where? Back to the future. Precisely on schedule.
I suspect the discs sustained damage early on, because in 2005 I picked up another box set called the 4-disc Ultimate Edition. Ultimate. That's funny. The first 3 discs are exactly the same as in the last set. What's new is disc number 4, dedicated solely to mostly new bonus features for all 3 movies, including new audio commentaries, documentaries featuring Bob Gale, an interview with Michael J. Fox.
Shooting this movie in Pasadena, and these people came by, these location scouts, because it's this great neighborhood where everybody shoots.
Excerpts from the original Back to the Future script from 1980, and even a music video for Huey Lewis and the News. Even if you own the original DVD set, this set offers enough to keep the fans happy. For 10 years, this was my go-to source for Back to the Future. But then, when I moved into my first house, my dad bought me a Blu-ray player, and with it came the Back to the Future 25th Anniversary Trilogy. Unfortunately, these discs had to be replaced. Over the years, they got more wrecked than my original DVDs. As far as I'm concerned, these are the best home media releases Back to the Future has ever had, ranging from visual quality, menu presentation, navigation, and bonus features. On the Blu-rays, you get the same bonus features.
Time travel has always been fascinating because...
But new to these discs is the multi-part documentary, Tales from the Future.
And, you know, when I started studying film, I realized that telling a time travel story in a movie lends itself to doing it probably better than in any other medium.
One of the best documentaries relating to these movies I have ever seen. Also featured on the Blu-rays are scene-specific commentaries from Bob Gale and Neil Canton.
It's okay, I know CPR. I know CPR.
Hey. What's CPR?
You!
No, kids, that's not what CPR is.
They could have left the series there, but nope, there had to be more. There was the 30th anniversary set, released in 2015, just in time for the events of Part 2.
Alright, Doc, what's going on, huh? Where are we? When are we?
We're descending toward Hill Valley, California at 4:29 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21st, 2015.
And 5 years later, in 2020, they released the 35th anniversary on Blu-ray and 4K. As of this video, I don't have a 4K TV, so if there is any visual improvement, I can't experience it or judge the quality of it. What I do know is that, apart from a degree of visual clarity, the 4K version has almost nothing new. The bonus features are all carried over from previous releases, but now with a severe downgrade in terms of overall presentation. As for the Blu-ray version, there is actually a new bonus disc, featuring content for a museum exhibit, some old audition tapes, a behind-the-scenes look at the Back to the Future musical, and some fake commercials for hoverboards and Jaws 19.
Join the air pollution with the hoverboard. Air's no longer for just breathing, bruh.
So if this is enough to intrigue you, sure, buy the new set. Otherwise, I'd say you're fine with the 25th anniversary. And that's the movies covered. Time to cover some additional goodies. The centerpiece to this collection is this VHS LED lamp. As a sucker for LED lights, I couldn't say no to this. I bought one for Back to the Future and one for Jurassic Park for my wife. It's okay. It's cheaply made, so it's not super bright, and when the battery starts dying, the quality suffers even more. But when it has a fresh battery, it looks really cool. Next, there's Back to the Future, the animated series. This is a cartoon that aired on CBS in the early 90s. It's an interesting show, not quite on the level of quality as the movies, but it's worth a watch at least once. You get live action segments with Christopher Lloyd, you get some bits with Bill Nye the Science Guy, and Dan Castellaneta is a great Doc Brown.
Whoa! Heavy!
Heavy indeed! 2,796 pounds to be exact. After all, there's a car in there.
And then finally, we have Back to the Future the game. I played this when it came out on PC in 2011, and I loved it.
If my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
When it came to home consoles in 2015, I had to get it. As far as I'm concerned, this is as close to a Back to the Future 4 as we'll ever get. The gameplay is pretty easy, but the game has a lot of personality and charm.
Where to, Doc?
Mr. McFly, thrill me.
And that's it. We're done. It's been one hell of a journey. We've covered some good releases, some bad releases. Some were iconic, some you may have never heard of. Some were brand new, some were older than me. Some were super expensive, some were practically bargains. Some have great packaging, some were The Simpsons. Some were bought specifically for a review, some were bought for artwork. Some were bought as space filler, while others were bought simply for nostalgic joy. Some were fun to review, and some were nothing short of tedious. Some have stood the test of time, while others are a product of their time. Some of them I have owned since childhood. Some my family members owned. One of them I took from a family member. I still don't think it was a good trade. One of them I borrowed from a friend and never returned. It's not stealing, I swear. Some still play in excellent quality after multiple decades, and some have faulty audio tracks. At the end of the day, no matter what it may be, I'm just a guy who loves telling stories, and what better way to do it than with some media relics from my childhood. I thank you for joining me on this long journey. This has been Video Memories. I have been me, you have been you, and this is me saying thank you and good night.